and
Dude,
arguing
dude,
the
dude,
ban.
dude, 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 dude. There's nothing funnier. There is nothing funnier than saying TikTok is responsible for the spread of misinformation, which it is. Okay, that's true. But exclusively TikTok is responsible for spreading misinformation. Have you seen Twitter? Have you seen Facebook? Have you seen any of the social media platforms out there? Yeah, I did say that. That was funny. Here is Scott Geller on MSNBC talking about the revolutionary sentiment that is sparking amongst the working class that must liberate themselves from the must emancipate themselves and crush the chains of capital. We're going to be covering that as well. And then I'll also get to the Lake and Riley Act and how devastating and dangerous that is. Did I say Scott Galloway or did I say the wrong? Yeah, he sucks, by the way. Scott Galloway is awful. Did I say Scott Geller? Oh.
We'll hear our arguments today regarding the law that would effectively shut down the video sharing app in the U.S. And now President-elect Trump is weighing in. Dan Abrams standing by to break down the arguments. First, senior White House correspondent Selena Wang is at the court. Good morning, Selena.
TikTok will make its last stand. The app is set to be banned just days from now, so TikTok is making its final plea to stay in America.
Yeah, this is how they're making the plea. Look at these cool ass dances.
It's one of the most popular social media apps in America with an estimated 100 million.
Why is Scott Galloway bad? Yeah, he has interesting thoughts on toxic masculinity. Okay, that's fine. Just don't look at what he has to say about Palestinians and students who are in favor of Palestinian emancipation, or even like all this other stuff about like his opinion on masculinity and stuff. He's got a lot of weird takes. Anyway, let's continue with this.
Home to viral moments and everything from how-to tutorials.
You have to make these chopped Italian sandwiches. These
to fashion and beauty trends.
These over here are the Cyber Monday deals I'm low-key looking at.
But in just 9 days, TikTok is set to disappear from America's app stores after Congress passed a law forcing its Chinese parent company ByteDance to sell the app or face a ban. Lawmakers from both parties and the White House argue it's a serious national security risk.
Oh, by the way, they are going to come after Tencent. They're going to come after League of Legends. I'm just letting you know right now. I am letting you know right now. They're going to come after League of Legends. They're going to come after Valorant. They're going to come after the drone producers. What is it called? DJI or whatever, the Chinese drone manufacturers. They're going to come after Chinese router companies like TP-Link. I'm just letting you know. DJI, sorry, yeah. Yes, Marvel Rivals might be on the chopping block. I am letting you know right now that the way things are going, they're going to try to clamp down on anything and everything that is made in China. This panic is not going away. It is not going to subside. It is going to get much worse. Let's continue.
The Chinese government can force TikTok to hand over Americans' data and use the app to spread misinformation. TikTok denies those claims, saying its American operations are separate and arguing the ban.
Dude, there's nothing funnier. There is nothing funnier than saying TikTok is responsible for the spread of misinformation, which it is. Okay, that's true. But exclusively TikTok is responsible for spreading misinformation. Have you seen Twitter? Have you seen Facebook? Have you seen any of the social media platforms out there? Like, if you cared about the dissemination of truth, right? Or if you cared about like hate speech or you know, all of these like divisive all these divisive statements coming out of social media and like dividing the public, then apply European style restrictions. Then you will never do that, of course, because this has nothing to do with national security fears. This has nothing to do with misinformation that TikTok is causing, and everything to do with TikTok being a Chinese operated company that is literally sucking up the rest of the social media marketplace, and they want to ensure that they're the only game in town. American owned companies must dominate the land. TikTok doesn't offer the same backdoors that every other social media platform offers to the American intelligence agencies. That's a big problem for them. And also, it's not controlled by by an American that is malleable, by a Westerner that is, easier to control. That's the reason. That's why they absolutely hate it.
And violates the First Amendment right to freedom of speech. So far, federal judges have sided with the government, but later today, the Supreme Court's 9 justices will hear the arguments that...
I know they're already coming for Tencent. U.S. asks Chinese tech giants to list of companies allegedly working with China's military. Yeah. Tencent. The U.S. Department of Defense has added Chinese tech companies Tencent, a social media and gaming giant, and CATL, the world's largest battery maker, to a list of firms that it alleges works with the Chinese military. And the thing is, they do. They do. Of course they do. You know who else works with the military, with their respective military? Every American company. Every company in the United States of America, from video game developers all the way to whatever, whatever goods manufacturing we have that remains here, okay? It's so stupid. If anything, the Chinese collaboration with the government / the Chinese military is much more limited than the overt American collaboration that every single one of our software companies and hardware companies works directly with the American military. Yeah, from Microsoft to Facebook to Amazon, everything. If they take away my League of Legends, I'm going full treatlerite. Yeah, Tencent Epic Games also works with the U.S. military. Epic partners with SwordTech for government and military applications. Epic Games has selected SwordTech as our official provider of licensing. Inclusion of the Pentagon list does not result in immediate sanctions, but it could affect the reputations of the companies named and hinder their commercial progress, particularly if they want to do business in the United States. Shares in Tencent, which owns Chinese super app WeChat, were 6.5% lower in Hong Kong on Tuesday, while CATL Shenzhen listed shares lost more than 3%. They joined dozens of other alleged Chinese military companies on the list that the Defense Department alleges operate directly or indirectly in the U.S., according to a notice posted in the Federal Register on Monday. The Pentagon has said the so-called 1260H list, which is updated annually, is an important continued effort in highlighting and countering China's military-civil fusion strategy, a goal to develop the most technologically advanced military in the world by eliminating barriers between the country's civilian research and commercial sectors and its armed forces. Meanwhile, we got this going on. Mr. Beast, Kelly Clarkson, and Guy Fieri were approved for Pentagon funds last year as military recruitment hits record lows. Look at that. Ridiculous. Yeah.
Like nation.
Mark Zuckerberg openly admitting that Meta works with the intelligence community to identify foreign influence operations. Like, that's the major reason why they're so upset with TikTok too. And obviously the straw that broke the camel's back was when they got the Israel lobby on board with banning TikTok. Because if you recall, Donald Trump initially said he wanted to ban TikTok when he was president. There was a lot of motion to ban TikTok. This materialized and became a full-blown, he wanted to do it via executive authority. It didn't work, right? Then they turned to Congress. And the final straw that broke the camel's back was post-October 7 when the ADL got involved. When ADL and other, Israel lobby arms got together and wanted to ban TikTok because there was too much pro-Palestinian sentiment going on those platforms, as opposed to like Meta, where if you say anything even remotely pro-Palestinian, you get banned. They were able to finally push Congress to take action, which they did, and then they voted for it, and then it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and now the Supreme Court is discussing whether or not to ban this website. And virtually all members of the supposedly liberal media, supposedly mainstream liberal media, are on board with this ban as well. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, given the advantages that he got from TikTok in a last-ditch effort, I think, from TikTok that opened up the content faucet for right-wing sentiment to thrive even more than it does, is now trying to save TikTok. At least that's what he's saying he wants to do.
That will determine TikTok's fate. After President-elect Donald Trump, who tried to ban TikTok during his first term, urged the Supreme Court to put the law on hold.
It's sad. It's really, really sad.
Hanging in the balance, many content creators and small businesses who make a living off of the app.
Hey there, I'm Nadia.
Like Nadia Okamoto, who has over 4 million followers.
If TikTok were to go away, we would be facing a really, really challenging situation.
Yeah, this is a very real issue because TikTok is virtually the only game in town for a lot of small businesses that have, become very successful small businesses. It's not even a joke. Like, this is straight up something that I brought. This is something that I brought up as well.
Now, if the ban does go into effect, TikTok isn't just going to disappear from your phone, but new users won't be able to download it and you won't get those software updates. So eventually the app would just stop working. Now, the Supreme Court is expected to make its final decision sometime next week before that January 19th deadline. Guys?
Okay, Selena, thanks. Let's bring in our chief legal analyst.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad because this means one less deliverable for me at work. I think that it is absolutely ridiculous that they are banning TikTok. Here's Mitt Romney openly admitting why they want to ban TikTok, by the way. I just want to point this out. Here it is.
Been so awful. I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you've said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception?
I don't know how you can see how badly TikTok has broken people's brains, and I think it's bad to ban it. I don't agree with their reasoning, but it would be a net good. No, you want to know why? Because, and I've repeated this over and over again, TikTok is one of the only social media platforms where there is leftist sentiment that routinely goes viral. Every other social media platform actively clamps on this sort of sentiment and genuinely stops its distribution. That's the reason why they want to ban TikTok to begin with. It's a major part of the problem. So I say, if there are going to be no restrictions whatsoever, then yeah, I don't want the only platform where there is somewhat of a 50-50 split on left-leaning sentiment versus right-wing supercharged conspiracy theories is better overall than platforms like Twitter that is like completely overtaken by neo-Nazi nonsense. That's it. Yeah, exactly. TikTok is the most left-wing platform, which isn't saying much, by the way. Just so you understand, TikTok being the most left-wing platform doesn't mean that it's like all leftist content on there. It's not that at all. There's plenty of right-wing nut jobs on there too. There's plenty of conspiracy theories on there as well. What do you think will replace it? It seems inevitable that it'll be taken away. Yeah, people are just going to supercharge YouTube Shorts. You know? That's it. That's what's going to happen. People are going to go to other platforms, and that's precisely what these American-backed and Western-backed social media platforms want. They either want to be able to control TikTok and give it to the hands of, forcibly sell it to an American, or they want to just like eradicate it so that people just use Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. They've all made their competitive products. Okay.
On the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. It said it's all the other way around. I mean, typically the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact of images dominates. And we can't discount that. But I think it also has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok.
Yeah, what they're talking about isn't necessarily that TikTok is woke, particularly, okay? They're simply stating correctly that TikTok has more left-wing sentiment in it. Like, TikTok allows more left-wing sentiment than other platforms. It doesn't mean that it's like overwhelmingly leftist. The argument here is that because TikTok is not controlling the flow of information, they're admitting basically to suppressing any sort of left-wing sentiment. That's it. It's stuff like this. It's stuff like, obviously, Gaza, but then also Luigi Mangione. Okay? I'm telling you right now. There's only a permissible amount of left-wing sentiment that is allowed on websites, okay? We got to take it out. We got to take out anyone that is a naysayer of the State Department, no matter what the cost. I mean, I'll give you a personal example, obviously, of what I have gone through here on Twitch, right? Think about how many outside organizations have come after the entirety of Twitch. Think about how many media articles have been written about my unacceptable anti-Semitism. Why? Because I'm pro-Palestinian, okay? It is a laughable argument to make that I am even remotely anti-Semitic. I have spent so much of my media career combating anti-Semitism, explaining to people what dog whistles look like, and combating against fascist sentiment. And just like that, because of my overt and open defense of Palestinian emancipation, because of my unflinching support for Palestinian liberty, for human rights and recognition for Palestinians, immediately it's like, this guy is an anti-Semite. You have to ban him. And you're shadow banned on Insta. Exactly. That's the other side of this story. Okay? That's it.
I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
Here's the other side of the story. Mark Zuckerberg on how Meta works with the intelligence community to identify foreign influence operations. Let's take a look.
Nation states or people interfering. A lot of that stuff is best rooted out at the level of kind of accounts doing phony things. It's effectively like intelligence, counterintelligence folks, counterterrorism folks, AI folks who are building systems to identify what are these accounts that are just not behaving the way that people would, and how are they interacting, and then sometimes you trace it.
Where is he shadow banned? Put my name on the Instagram search bar. See if you can find me. Do it. Look at this. Hassan Piker fans. Hasanabi tweets. Hassan Minhaj. Hassan John Kaya. Hasanabi posting. Hassan D. Piker 69. Hassan D. Piker page. Hassan D. Piker memes. Hassan D. _ Piker. You have to write my full username for me to come up. And I'm logged in on my own profile. Like, I'm logged in on my own profile and it still won't show up. Yeah, look at this. This is real. I don't follow my business account, but wanted to check your stories and I had a hard time finding you. Yeah. I mean, there's like there are ways where you can find there are ways where you can find if you're shadow banned or whatever or blacklisted or whatever, but your own profile never shows up in search. You come up for me fine without typing out the name. Is this because I'm in Canada? Maybe. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I'm not here to complain and cry all the time about like, oh, my algorithm is bad or whatever. It doesn't matter ultimately, and it's varying results. Okay. I love how we can be shadow banned with no due process, no appeal, no way of even challenging it. Yeah, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It still shows like, at least for the time being, it still shows what I'm putting out there to my audience, to the people that have already followed me. It just makes it much harder for new people to follow. It limits your engagement. Now, having said that, okay, the thing that is what I'm talking about is a much larger problem. Like, Meta is so censorious on any sort of Palestinian sentiment, regardless of what Mark Zuckerberg is saying about like anti-DEI initiatives and whatever. Human Rights Watch did a report on it. Meta's broken promises, systemic censorship of Palestine content on Instagram and Facebook. Like Human Rights Watch was criticizing Facebook. They have had they've operated a major censorship regime on any sort of sentiment that is even remotely pro-Palestinian, so far as like to limit the engagement of accounts that have the Palestinian flag on them, on their descriptions. Like, it's crazy.
Down and sometimes you get some tips from different intelligence agencies, and then you can kind of piece together over time. It's like, oh, this network of people is actually some kind of fake cluster of accounts, and that's against our policies, and then we just take them all off. But
how are you sure? Like, is there a 100% certainty
that
you are definitely getting a group of people that are bad actors, or is it just people that have unpopular opinions?
No, I don't think it's that for this. I think.
But what I'm saying is, how do you determine?
Yeah.
Like, how do you at what percentage of accuracy are you determining it? Do you ever accidentally think that people that are going to get moderated are actually just real people?
Yes, I think for the specific problem around these like large coordinated groups doing kind of like election.
Yeah, Facebook literally tagged people as terrorists in their internal software for being pro-Palestinian. Okay, so understand that like these guys are not. I mean, this is like as straightforward as it gets. According to Amnesty and many other human rights organizations, Facebook played a significant role, which Mark Zuckerberg even apologized for, promoting violence against Rohingya, and that Meta owes reparations. Myanmar, Facebook systems promoted violence against Rohingya, the Muslims, in the genocide that took place. Facebook played a role in that genocide, an active role in that genocide through WhatsApp specifically, where misinformation was spread about the Rohingya Muslims.
interference or something. It's a large enough group.
But hey, he does BJJ and he took steroids, TRT, and he got hit with a Dominican ray. So obviously he's cool now.
We have like a bunch of people analyzing it. It's like they study it for a while. I think we're probably pretty accurate on that.
Yeah. Not really relevant, but I think Zuck got on TRT, and I think it completely changed his whole personality and pretty much his approach to life, which happens. It's funny to watch a kind of meek, damp, befuddled alien guy slowly become a what's the move tonight rich white guy.
At the beginning,
here it is. More anti-vaxxer nonsense and how Facebook complied with the state demands.
It kind of seemed like, okay, we should give a little bit of deference to the government and the health authorities on how we should play this. But when it went from 2 weeks to flatten the curve to, and like in the beginning, it was like, okay, there aren't enough masks. Masks aren't that important. To then it's like, oh no, you have to wear a mask. And, like everything was shifting around. It just became very difficult to kind of follow. And this really hit the most extreme, I'd say, during the Biden administration when they were trying to roll out the vaccine program. And I'm generally like pretty pro rolling out vaccines. I think on balance, the vaccines are more positive than negative. But I think that while they're trying to push that program, they also tried to censor anyone who is basically arguing against it. And they pushed us.
You know what's funny about a lot of this stuff is that the overwhelming majority of the initial wave of content and content moderation surrounding COVID didn't happen under the Biden administration. It happened under the Trump administration, which is why I'm always shocked whenever these guys like make it seem as though Biden was already the president. Like they openly lie about this. It's so funny. Like even Matt Taibbi's assessment of government-backed suppression of speech during the hilarious Twitter files, it happened under the Trump administration. Trump was the president at that time. And they still, for some crazy reason, run with this insane narrative that it was actually the Biden administration that did this. I hate the Biden administration. I've criticized it time and time again. But it is mind-boggling to me how many people openly go along with this concept as though he was already in charge, as though he was already controlling the FBI before he won the presidency. I feel like I'm losing my mind. It's like so basic. Such an obvious lie. Why? Why is it? I don't know. It's so stupid.
Super hard to take down things that were true, right? I mean, they basically pushed us and said, anything that says that vaccines might have side effects, you basically need to take down. And I was just like, well, we're not going to do that. Like, we're clearly not going to do that.
That's also a lie.
That is kind of inarguably true.
Who is they? Who's telling you to take down things that that talk about vaccine side effects?
It was people in the Biden administration. I mean, a lot of this is documented. I mean, because Jim Jordan and the House had this whole investigation and committee into the kind of government censorship around stuff like this, and we produced all these documents, and it's all in the public domain. I mean, basically, these people from the Biden administration would call up our team and like scream at them and curse, and it's like these documents it's all kind of out there.
Oh, did you record any of those phone calls?
I don't think we but I think
I want to listen.
I mean, there are emails. the emails are published. It's all kind of out there, and they're like, and basically it just got to this point where we were like, no, we're not gonna take down things that are true. That's ridiculous. They wanted us to take down this meme of Leonardo DiCaprio looking at a TV talking about how 10 years from now or something, you're going to see an ad that says, okay, if you took a COVID vaccine, you're eligible for, for this kind of payment, like this sort of like class action lawsuit type meme. And they're like, no, you have to take that down. And we just said, no, we're not going to take down humor and satire. We're not going to take down things that are that are true. And then at some point, I guess, I don't know, it flipped a bit. I mean, Biden, when he gave some statement at some point, I don't know if it was a press conference or to some journalists, where he basically was like, these guys are killing people. And I don't know, then like all these different agencies and branches of government basically just like started investigating, coming after our company. It was brutal. It was brutal.
Wow.
Bro, it is crazy. These guys are like, they just dropped, dude, it's so funny that they just like dropped liberalism, which was already on aesthetic grounds anyway, like a bad habit, and are just now engaging in the same insane conspiracies.
Dan Abrams. So this pits national security, that's what Congress decided is paramount in putting the ban into place, versus free speech. Appeals court said national security wins. Do you think the Supreme Court's going to agree?
I think so. I think it's likely, because this isn't really a case about banning TikTok, right? It's about forcing a foreign government to sell it. And part of the argument here is this is not just a media entity. This is a data collection agency as well, working for the Chinese government. So that's a pretty strong national security argument. Typically, the court has been pretty deferential to Congress and to laws when it comes to national security.
And we see President-elect Trump wanted to ban it. Now he's interested in keeping it around. Yeah. So if this ban does go into effect, can the Trump administration do anything about it?
Not much. I mean, they can first try to repeal it, right? They can try to get Congress to repeal it. The problem with that is it's really a popular law. It was a bipartisan law. It would be very hard for the Trump administration to convince Congress to say, oh, you know what? That law we passed, we're going to...
It's not a popular law. It's popular in Congress. It's not a popular law. It's simply popular in Congress. What's popular in Congress is not popular for the American population.
We're gonna retract it. The biggest thing they could do is they could assure the Apples and Googles of the world, we're not going to enforce it. Don't worry, you're good for now. The question is going to be, is that enough for them to say, okay, they're telling us that they're not going to enforce it, but boy, these fines are very substantial if someone does decide that they are going to start enforcing.
Well, and one of the big questions about the app itself is the secret sauce inside of TikTok, which is the algorithm. That's the thing that makes sure you see what they want you to see, so you keep playing around inside of the app. What happens to that in all of this?
Well, and the Chinese government is basically saying the reason they don't want to sell it is they're not going to sell the algorithm. Now, you have some American buyers who are coming forward and saying, hey, that's fine. We'll take TikTok. We'll take it without the algorithm. You know, who knows what's going to happen with the algorithm, but the Chinese are citing that as the main reason why there's no way, no how they can sell it. We'll see if the court comes in and says, you got to sell it. We'll see if they stick with it.
I got to ask another question. If the administration says they're not going to enforce it, can either Congress or some kind of private party bring some kind of action to force the administration?
It would be hard. They could try, but it would be hard. In the end, it's going to be, and that's why there'd be concerns, right, from the Googles and the Apples of the world as to, you know, is there really safety here?
Okay. Dan Abrams, thanks very much.
Following today's oral arguments, the Supreme Court appears ready to uphold a ban on TikTok that is set to take effect in 9 days. The popular app is used by as many as 170 million users in the U.S. A bipartisan law orders TikTok to shut down in 9 days unless it finds a new owner that is not in China or the Supreme Court takes action.
To give you some background, lawmakers fear that through TikTok, China could acquire Americans' private data or could push propaganda that would sow discord. It's a risk that TikTok's lawyer acknowledged to the 9 justices this morning.
That they would use that information over time to develop spies, to turn people, to blackmail people, people who a generation from now will be working in the FBI or the CIA or in the State Department. Is that not a realistic assessment by Congress and the President of the risks here?
Well, Your Honor, I'm not disputing the risks. I certainly acknowledge the risk, but I think there are lots of reasons, not just the one I just gave, but there are lots of reasons why that risk still can't justify the law.
Let's get the latest on what happened today with CNN Chief Supreme Court analyst Joan Biskupik. Joan, it looks like the justices are not going to block this ban.
It does, but I've got a couple caveats. No, you could tell that they were with the federal government here in terms of the main motivation. But there are a couple questions. There are actually three. First of all, is this a First Amendment infringement? And once you get past that, has the Congress passed a law that's narrowly tailored to kind of meet its compelling interest to override the First Amendment free speech interest? And then after that, what about timing? Because that did come up here. Could this possibly not take effect on January 19th, which is when it's scheduled to take effect, which of course is a day before President-elect Donald Trump comes in? First of all, on that exchange that you just listened to, there was so much concern about the potential for, Chinese espionage. At one point, the Chief Justice also said, so are we supposed to ignore the fact that the ultimate parent is, in fact, subject to doing intelligence work for the Chinese government? Because TikTok, while an American company, is owned ultimately by ByteDance, which is, headquartered in Beijing. So that was a real concern. But those two grounds that you just mentioned that Congress passed the law based on, the data collection for blackmail and other espionage, and the covert manipulation, it was that latter grounds that the justices were really suspicious about. Doesn't everyone know now that TikTok is owned by a Chinese parent company? Wouldn't they know that potentially that there could be some manipulation? So I think the justices might not agree with the government on the extent of the grounds here. So bottom line, it looks like this court is ready to rule against TikTok, but then finally, timing. The question came up of whether there should be some postponement of the effect of the law taking place on January 19th, which is what Congress had dictated when it passed the law back in April. President-elect Donald Trump has said, put a pause on it. TikTok has said, put a pause on it. And the justices started to ask about that. And the Solicitor General of the United States, currently the Biden administration Solicitor General, said, no, if you're going to rule for us based on our national security grounds that it looked like they were ready to buy, there's no reason to say that that would justify any kind of postponement here. But there seemed to...
They don't give a shit about anything, bro. The Biden admin is so funny. They literally are just like, no, ban it, ban it, ban it, ban it, ban it. Good stuff. You want to know how ridiculous the arguments are about covert manipulation, data collection, and all that? The Democratic Party moved to ban TikTok. And then they set up TikTok accounts for both Joseph Robinette Brandon and Kamala Harris. That's it. That's all you need to know about how ridiculous these arguments are. That's it. That's it. Destroyed by design. Los Angeles fires are a part of a larger globalist plot to wage economic warfare and deindustrialize the United States before triggering total collapse. Elon Musk. True. Nice.
Be some sentiment about should they act when we're in the middle of a transition between administrations, and what would the consequence be if they were to do it that way?
It's going to be so interesting what happens, especially with the timing. Joan, thank you so much for that. Sure. We do appreciate it.
What exactly did
Biden is spinning today.
Also asked about Havana syndrome. Today, the intelligence community assessment changed slightly, with two intelligence agencies now saying there's an even chance that this is being caused by a foreign actor. Do you personally believe that a foreign actor is responsible?
Those TikTok accounts are not personal, but political in nature. What are you talking about? It doesn't matter. They're literally promoting TikTok by using TikTok to promote their political campaigns. And there are people who have access to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that are in these camps that have to be logged on to TikTok and using TikTok to do marketing.
Responsible for these incidents?
No. Now, do I believe that ISIS's theology, if you will, has impacted people in America? Some who are not particularly well suited to handle the life they live.
What?
It has that effect. But I find no evidence, and I spent 17, 18 hours with the community right off the bat.
Asked about Havana syndrome, President Biden gets confused and starts talking about ISIS theology.
Trying to determine whether or not there was any outside influence. And thus far, we find no connection between an outside player, individual. But that doesn't mean someone reading the malarkey that's going out there isn't influenced by it. Both these men, both in Nevada and in Louisiana, have been men who've had their own problems but not because they've been influenced by a specific individu.
Sorry. So my question was on Havana syndrome, not Nevada. Sorry, on the Havana syndrome, the intelligence community today, part of their assessment changed, saying that there is now an even chance that.
Look at his fucking face! Oh my God!
The Havana syndrome cases and incidents, there's a foreign actor potentially behind them. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't have the full brief on that right now. I'm not going to comment on that.
Do you have an update on Austin?
Here's another good take from Brandoni. Asked if he regrets his decision to run for re-election, President Biden says, "I don't think so."
I don't think so. I think I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump, would have beaten Trump. It wasn't about, I thought it was important to unify the party. And when the party was worried about whether or not I was going to be able to move, I thought even though I thought I could win again, I thought it was better to unify the party. And it was the greatest honor in my life to be President of the United States, but I didn't want to be one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election. And that's
Yeah. He could have beaten Trump totally.
Well, look, the whole idea of walking away from fact-checking as well as not reporting anything having to do with discrimination regarding TPS, I find to be...
Video on who funded the TikTok. What is this? Guess which country is funding all the research about how dangerous TikTok is and how its users don't hate China enough?
Walls behind all.
Let me guess. It was if it was written in the free press, then is the answer Israel? Is that what's going to be?
All the research, quote unquote, proving that TikTok brainwashed America's youth. Well, maybe you do have some inkling, but I have all the receipts. First, a little context. TikTok is fighting for its life right now in the Supreme Court because they tell us that it is a supposed national security threat, and also its algorithm is supposedly pushing very dangerous ideas on Americans. The evidence for the so-called threat to national security comes courtesy of the Justice Department, which, as you can see here, is just a whole lot of trust me, bro. And in terms of the dangerous algorithm, they will say that TikTok is actively manipulating perceptions of China and the Chinese Communist Party through algorithmic bias. And this is the seminal study they're going to cite, which is titled Information Manipulation on TikTok and its Relation to American Users' Beliefs
Rutgers University, Department of Psychology.
About China. It is a paper put out by NCRI, Network Contagion Research Institute at Rutgers University, which once again, they conclude that TikTok is, quote, indoctrination at scale. But here's what they don't tell you about that study. That study never analyzes the For You page, which is how everybody uses TikTok. Nor do they ever look at view count, which is just super weird. All they did was some arbitrary categorization and count of pro or anti-CCP videos, which they found through searches. I mean, why wouldn't they A, factor in how the user actually uses the app, which is the For You page? And B, if they're claiming that they're worried about ideas spreading like wildfire, why aren't they actually looking at the view counts of these videos? But hey, that's just my take on it. You can look up this study and judge the methodology for yourself. But could it be that the conclusion was predetermined for reasons? Because guess who runs the Network Contagion Research Institute? Oh, and by the way, what I'm about to show you has been entirely scrubbed from the internet. I had to go to the Wayback Machine to find their About page, which is now deleted. First, you got guys at Big Tech, most notably Peter Norvig, Director of Research at Google. And we know they want the competition gone. Then you have the folks from the military. For example, this gentleman, Jacob Shapiro, Chief Scientific Officer, U.S. Navy. More military, Denver Riggleman. He did advanced analysis for the NSA. And we know they have a little bit of a vested interest in keeping our enemies our enemies. And the final piece of the puzzle, perhaps the most important, people like Alex Goldenberg, lead intelligence analyst, who did intelligence work for AIPAC. Last but not least, the director and co-founder, Joel Finkelstein. He is from the Anti-Defamation League. Okay, that is a lot there.
A lot of these guys work in pro State Department. I don't think this is like specifically Israel. I think that given that Israel is aligned or is an extension of American empire, yes, you're going to see a lot of people who have worked in the pro-Israeli side of things actively working on initiatives such as this one. Yeah. That's all that is.
And unfortunately, there's a lot that I'm gonna have to leave unsaid for reasons. Some dots that you're just gonna have to connect for your.
Okay, yeah, I think this stuff is stupid. Yeah, they're anti-China, and they don't like that TikTok is popular. They want to sell off this popular product by force to an American so they can control the dissemination of info on it. And yes, if you scratch the surface hard enough, you're always going to find people that are working at these like research institutes that have State Department background. And yes, if you have State Department background, of course you have at a certain point worked for an Israeli Knesset granted, jobs program like at the ADL, or, I mean, I guess AIPAC doesn't officially get sponsorship from the Israeli government because then it would be a foreign lobbying group. But, but yeah, it's not. It's not shocking. I think it's a byproduct of Israel being a tool of American empire. And it's like such a strange thing that I can't get pro-Israel people to reckon with, liberal Zionists, and I can't get anti-Semitic people to understand it either. They both, to varying degrees, repeat the same old horse shit. Which is that Israel is operating on its own and dominating American politics does Israel have a tremendous amount of influence over Does Israel have a tremendous amount of influence over American domestic affairs? Absolutely. Okay. It does. It spends a great deal of money on making sure that there is ideologically minded pro-Israeli people growing up in the United States of America. They spend a great deal of money also making sure that Congress plays ball. But the only reason why they're allowed to do that and not China is because it is a cycle that that benefits American empire. Like the special privilege that Israel gets in this regard is not the special privilege that Israel gets in that regard is not unique because Israel is Jewish. It's unique because Israel is an extension of the American state. Yeah, see, this is why I'm saying, like, is it safe to say USA is a puppet of Israel? No, it's not. It's the opposite. Israel is a weapon of the US state, not vice versa.